Hello everyone, DoughnutDoney here. Welcome to another special episode. This is not going to be the retro series, but we're kind of looking back at things that have happened in the past, but all connected to what you see behind me, War of the Worlds. It's 2025 and yesterday I managed to watch, if you can call it that word, the Amazon Prime version of War of the Worlds starring Ice Cube. It's only just been released, even though it was made 5 years ago. And after watching the film, more about that later, I thought, how's it compared to other versions of War of the Worlds? And in this special episode, we're going to do a countdown from all the versions that I've seen, and this includes all multimedia. So this includes games, books, experiences, stage shows, all the ones that I've seen. And then right at the end, we will do an honourable mentions of other ones that I haven't seen, so I can't really rate them, and we're going to rate them in my personal opinion. This is all my personal opinion, from the worst to what I think is the best. So we'll start right away with in this part the worst one, and then it'll get better and better, hopefully, by then. So hopefully you enjoy this. This is very new to me. I don't normally do rating shows, but I thought this might be a good change from reviewing some retro games, which we're still doing. But yeah, hope you like it. Before we go into the rundown, we need to talk about how it all started. And of course, it all started with the H.G. Wells 1898 novel set in Victorian England, when basically the Earth gets attacked by Martians who send cylinders from Mars, and land in southeast England in the Surrey area. The area I know actually pretty well personally, because that's where my mother is from. She's from Surrey. H.G. Wells wrote this in, I'm just looking over at my notes over to the side, hence why I'm looking over to the your right a few times. War of Worlds science fiction novel by English author H.G. Wells about attempted invasion of Earth by beings from planet Mars with a much greater intelligence and more advanced weapons than the humans. The Martians intend to eliminate mankind and conquer Earth because their older and smaller world has reached the last stage of exhaustion. I can never say that word. It was written between 1895 and 1897, and it's featured in many magazines around that time. The full novel was first published in hardcover in 1898 by William Heinemann, and The War of the Worlds is one of the earliest stories to tell conflict between humankind and extraterrestrials. The novel is a first-person narrative of an unnamed person in Surrey and his younger brother who escapes to Tillingham in Essex as London and southern England are invaded by Martians. It's one of the most commented on works in science fiction, and it's never been out of release. Now, since the novel was released, many things then happened. I think the most famous, and it's worth mentioning that now, is the 1938 Orson Welles radio story that came out. We will feature that later in the honourable mentions in more detail. So it'd be right at the end of the video though, or I haven't, by the time I was doing this recording, I don't know if it's going to be in two parts, because I don't know how long the recording will be. So it could be the end of this video or could be the end of part 2, but the radio play is definitely worth talking about, because it made a lot of things going on in America, caused a lot of people panicking and stuff like that, because a lot of them thought it was real. But yeah, I wanted to start the video with an introduction to the War of the Worlds book and H.G. Wells. But now let's go into the countdown, and we have to start with the worst one, in my opinion. So before we get to the best, we always have to start with the worst, and I rate these from 12 till 1. So there's going to be 12 parts of War of the Worlds that all I've seen. This includes, again, all various multimedias, films, TV series, and experiences and stage shows and albums as well. That's all included in this update. But we have to start with the worst, and the worst one here at number 12 is the H.G. Wells War of the Worlds, the Asylum version. Now, this was made back in 2005, exactly the same time as the big Spielberg Tom Cruise version in 2005, and it's not very good. It's terrible, I have to say. I'm trying to be very polite here. It stars C. Thomas Howell in it, Peter Green and Jake Bushy. It was released on DVD pretty quickly. It was released on DVD in June 28th that year, and the special effects are very amateurish. The script is pretty weak. I managed to get through all of it, and to make matters worse, they actually made a sequel to this too, which will be featured in the, I would say, honourable mentions. They made a sequel 3 years later. I have to say I haven't seen this film for quite a long time now, hence why my mind's a bit blank about it. But from what I can remember, is it wasn't very good. I think they just released it exactly the same time as the big Hollywood release version of the Spielberg Cruise version, thinking they were hopefully going to get some of the audience to go and buy the DVD. But I would say if you're a War of the Worlds fan, go and watch it and make your own judgment about if you think it's good or if you think it's bad. Personally, again, all this is my own personal view. I think this is terrible. Pretty, very, very bad. Anyway, let's go off to number 11. Now, for number 11, I can actually talk a lot more about this one because I've only saw this yesterday by the time of this recording. And this is the 2025 release of War of the Worlds, done by Amazon and released on Amazon Prime. And it stars Ice Cube. And again, this is all to do with an invasion on Earth done by the, well, actually, the film doesn't actually say Martians, just done from some other aliens from another planet from somewhere. Now, the difference between this film and the other films which we'll mention later is this film is actually centered around Ice Cube being a big Department of Justice FBI type guy, and it's all done, you see all the invasion through his computer screen, and it uses, and there's so much product placing in this. It's terrible. It is an awful film. It's very short. It's only 90 minutes. And within those 90 minutes, the first 20 minutes, nothing really happens. All it does is seeing Ice Cube basically spying on his kids, not trusting them whatsoever by hacking into their phones, their internet leads, their computers, because he's got all the power to do that using all the satellites and using resources and like that. And when the actual invasion happens, it's you see the invasion viewer. They kind of just bought stock footage of military organizations and stuff like that, firing guns and stuff like that. You do see a couple of the actual tripods themselves, which you'll see on these screens. All these screens that you'll see, if I point in the right direction, over there, sorry, you'll see all the screens, all the information from the film up there. Yeah, you see the CGI on the actual aliens themselves is pretty decent. There's a little bit of action sequences which is decent, but this film was made 5 years ago in 2020 during the COVID pandemic, and it definitely shows. None of the main cast actually meet up. Again, all the film is done is basically them chatting via the computer screen. So the actual alien attacks you see is done via the computer screen. Most of the film is Ice Cube interacting with his daughter, her escaping from the aliens, and there is so much so much product placing, including Tesla and Amazon, WhatsApp, Facebook, and one I'll give you an example. There's going to be spoilers in this, so you better watch out. Like, for instance, his daughter gets injured in one attack, and he using his powers, of course, he hacks into a Tesla car, and a Tesla car takes her to a hospital, but all the hospitals are full, obviously. But when you see her talk in the Tesla car, and the Tesla car is driving by itself, she's not driving, she's in the back seat and talking to Ice Cube on their mobile phones via their computer screens, of course. And the whole Washington DC is meant to be total destruction. There's meant to be ruins everywhere, people panicking because it's an invasion. And when you look outside the car, it looks perfectly normal. A perfectly normal street, cars going down, people walking, not panicking. It's meant to be a lot of destruction in this film, and you barely see any of it. Again, you barely see much action in this film, and it's meant to be an action film. I think it's a unique way of making War of the Worlds, done by these computer screens and social media and stuff like that, but it's just not brilliant. The product placing is awful. You can see why it's an Amazon Prime film, because the if you can say the hero, one of the heroes is his daughter's boyfriend, who is an Amazon driver, and he uses a drone. And Ice Cube has to make a purchase on Amazon to get a thumb drive, I think it is, to battle against the aliens, because these aliens are actually after data. That's it, not food, resources, oil, gold, humans even, like in the original novel, of course, it was humans they were eating. No, these aliens eat data, and it's all about data, which is a very, very weird way of describe what these aliens are doing, basically. You can see I'm struggling for words here because it is so bad. If you look on YouTube right now, you can see that it's had so many negative reviews, and it also has got a very rare 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Anything below 10% on Rotten Tomatoes means it's very, very, very bad. And yeah, this one is so bad, I can see why it got 0%. The concept of him just looking at a computer screen and us looking at that computer screen, looking at all the pop-ups of all the WhatsApp and Facebook messages coming up, like there's a lot of instances in the film where he completely ignores important phone calls from his bosses and colleagues. He just completely ignores them because he wants to talk to his daughter, and his son features heavily in the film as well. I won't ruin what how heavily featured his son is, but it's all to do with hacking as well. But if you've got Amazon Prime and you're a sci-fi fan, I would watch it. If you're a War of the Worlds fan, definitely watch it, but you won't like it, trust me. Even the next one we'll look at is better than this, and that's saying something. But anyway, that is the Amazon Prime War of the Worlds 2025 starring Ice Cube. My summary of it is avoid it unless you are a real big War of the Worlds fan and you're just curious to see what this film was like. It's nice to see newer War of the Worlds. I'd love to see a film version of Jeff Wayne's musical album of War of the Worlds. That would be amazing to see. More about that later. But this film was not marketed much at all, and you can see why, because I got a feeling the Amazon people had a look thinking, oh, actually this is not very good. The acting is not good. Ice Cube, I've seen him act in much better films than this. Also, Eva Longerina, I probably pronounced that totally wrong, who's a well-known actress. She is barely in this. And yeah, if you're a War of the Worlds fan, you probably would want to go and see this, especially if you've got Amazon Prime. You can only watch it on Amazon Prime, but I'm sure it'll be released on DVD, Blu-ray in the future. But I would definitely avoid this if you are a science fiction fan. Let's just put it this way. Battlefield Earth, that John Travolta film done in the early 2000s, it's probably better than this. That's how bad it is. Anyway, that's it for this one. We're going to the next one, and they are slowly getting better, believe me. Now, we're at number 10, and it breaks my heart saying this. As you can see the backdrop, this is what we're going to be talking about. We'll be talking about the 2019 BBC series of War of the Worlds, which was released on the 17th of November to the 1st of December 2019. And I heard about this many months before it was actually going to be released, when BBC were releasing sort of like little teaser trailers and on TV especially about this, and I was so looking forward to it because War of the Worlds is set in the UK, set in England, and of course BBC's British and I'm British, and I thought of all the people that could do this really well, it would be BBC, and how wrong I was. It's you can still watch it on iPlayer, I think. It's a three-parter, and as I mentioned before, it's set in Surrey in 1905, and the Edwardian period though, not the Victorian period, because when H.G. Wells wrote War of the Worlds in 1898, that was still the Victorian years. Queen Victoria was still queen for another 3 more years, and so after 1901 her son took over and he became king, Edward the 7th, I think it was. If I'm wrong, please correct me. And it could be 6th. And this was set in Edwardian times in 1905, and basically they missed so much in this. It was quite true to the book, but what thing that really confused me is that had nothing to do with the book whatsoever, was something called, you have in some TV programs you have flashbacks to say what happened in the past, so the viewer like me can understand what's going on. In the BBC version of War of the Worlds, they did something called future backs, I suppose, looking forward in the future, after the alien attack and of course the humans beating the Martians. And these future backs are very confusing. They're not in the book whatsoever. It's just what would have happened after the Martian attack. How would people react? And you see the lady there talk to some other guy about how they're struggling and how her son, because she has a son born. And yeah, it is very, very confusing. It completely baffled me. The tripods you see out there, you only see them occasionally in the program as well. The CGI, the effects are very good. I think you'll see this on YouTube. There is a beach battle where you see a tripod trying to kill people on the beach, and that is so well done. And clearly they showed that in the trailers. And it kind of, sorry, my phone went off. I thought it was going to be all like that, but it ended up not being like that at all. That was the only real action sequence you saw. You saw some of the Martians going around destroying buildings and stuff like that, but it was solely concentrated on these two characters, and they weren't very lovable characters either. And you see also a couple of sequences of the government trying to react to this as well. And you can see that BBC spent a lot of money on this, and it's just a shame because I was so much looking forward to it, and it just wasn't as good as I thought, hence why it's quite low on this list. I'm just looking at my notes here again. Yeah, I'll read you what the actual intro to it is. In Edwardian England, 1905, journalist George has left his unhappy marriage behind to start a new life with his partner Amy, you can see Amy there, an inspiring researcher in the town of Woking. So they've got the right town, that's good, because it is set in Woking, Surrey, around that area. There they befriend Ogilvy. Ogilvy, of course, is featured in the book. We know what happens to him in the end. An astronomer and scientist, after meteorite lands in the woods and proves to be more dangerous than it first appeared, they must fight to survive an alien invasion. Oh dear. So we're at number 9, and things will slowly get better, I hope. This is the War of the Worlds 2019 TV series done by Fox Networks and French company Studio Canal. And It premiered in France in October 2019, and it stars Gabriel Byrne, Elizabeth McGowan, and a few other people. Now, I will read what the summary of this is, and then I'll show you my opinions. I have to stress, I only saw the first series. I never saw the next two series because I couldn't be bothered, to be blunt. In this new take of War of the Worlds, when astronomers detect a transmission from another star, it is definite proof of intelligence, extraterrestrial life. Earth's population waits for further contact with bated breath, but does not have long to wait. Within days, mankind is all but wiped out, with just pockets of humanity left in an eerie, deserted world. As alien ships appear in the sky, the survivors ask a burning question: who are these attackers and why are they hell-bent on our destruction? This is on Wikipedia, and that comment is from Deno Geek. Now, as I said before, I only seen the first series because it's very loosely linked to War of the Worlds. It's set in modern times. The CGI, the effects are very good. The storyline is decent when it starts off. It feels like a War of the Worlds, but as the episodes go on, and there's over 20 episodes in each series, the storyline kind of breaks away, I suppose, from I was trying to do my hands there. Breaks away from the main storyline of War of the Worlds into a more modern version of it. And the aliens are quite different to what you expect War of the Worlds to be. It's well made. It's very well made, hence why I've put this above the BBC version, but I've put it down quite low because I just did not enjoy it. I got lost totally in the storyline. I didn't know what was going on half the time. There is a lot of very good scenes in it. It's well produced, well directed, definitely, but I can see why it only lasted 3 episodes. If I just quickly look at the critics, because I've got it right in front of me. Yeah, they actually gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and they thought it was smart. It was a very smart series. But if you are more thinking it's going to be very linked to the War of the Worlds actual storyline and where it's set, then you won't like it because this is very modern. There is, of course, which we'll mention in the honourable mentions, the 1988 TV series War of the Worlds, which is actually more linked to the War of the Worlds film, which again we'll mention later. And that's meant to be pretty decent. I think it went a bit wild in the end as well. But again, this is why I'm not going to really mention too much about this, because I only saw the first series. I don't know what series 2 and 3 were like, but I kind of thought it's not that brilliant. But I think a lot of other people thought it was really enjoyable because, of course, it went over for another 2-3 more series. But anyway, that's War of the Worlds 2019. That is the Fox and Studio Canal French version of War of the Worlds. Now, coming in at number 8. Number 8 and number 7 are actually linked. Number 7, we will be talking about the album version of this. This is the Jeff Wayne's musical version of War of the Worlds, The New Generation. This is basically, we're going to talk about the 2012 onwards stage version of War of the Worlds. Now, if you didn't know, there was actually 2 versions of the stage version, if that makes any sense. The first version came out in 2006 to 2011. Now, this stage version is based on the original Jeff Wayne's musical version of War of the Worlds, which was released back in 1978. You know I'm going to say more about that later. But this is the stage version of the 2012 production of Jeff Wayne's musical version of War of the Worlds. Basically, it's Jeff Wayne, great guy, amazing guy, doing the whole album on stage with people coming in front of the orchestra. The orchestra is actually in 2 parts, and Jeff Wayne then conducts the audience, and basically you'll see the whole album done right in front of you with loads of special effects, massive screens behind showing what's going on as well. Like Eve of the War, which is the first song of the album, which is one of my all-time favorites, has done so well. It does so well in this stage version, both versions as well. Now, why have I put this version down lower than the original version, which will feature a lot higher up the list? Basically because I'm not such a fan of the 2012 release of the album, which was Jeff Wayne decided to do two versions of the album, one in 1978, the other one in 2012. And the 2012 changed quite a lot of things, including, for instance, the narrator is Liam Neeson. He does a good job, but the original narrator was Richard Burton. And all the other main people featured in the album have been replaced. I think only one of the originals came back. That was due to, sadly, most of them have died by now, some 30, 40 years later. But this version of the new generation, this version of this album was more synthesized, and it kind of ruined some of the songs, in my personal opinion even. And this stage version reflected that. You could see the more synthesizers were put into the songs on the stage version. And also when this first tour came out in 2012 called the New Generation Live on Stage Tour, they actually featured a brand new song which is not even on the album, called Distant Shores, which was done between the narrator and his fiancée Carrie. Very nicely done. Like, Carrie is in some of the stage shows, she's a hologram, and the main narrator, who the narrator in the original stage show was Justin Hayward, who was on the original album. And so the narrator then goes and sings with his fiancée, like they're missing each other and stuff like that. Yeah, it's nicely done. It's nice to see some new stuff into the stage show, but again, it's not featured on the album. The overall show is still amazing. It's still worth going. They're still doing tours now in 2025, time of this recording. It's definitely worth going to see it. And but I saw the show about 2 years ago, this new updated version, and yeah, I'm not going to knock it too much, but I did prefer the original version, and I'll give you the reasons of the original version later on, because that is a lot higher up on the list than this version. But this, I won't knock it. This is still a very good version, and but as I've now seen it 2 or 3 times, I probably won't go back and see it again, because I kind of know what's going on. But if you've never seen War of the Worlds on stage, then definitely go and see it, because it's definitely worth watching. So, as I mentioned before, number 8 and this one, number 7, are very closely linked, because number 8 was the stage. We're now going to actually talk about the 2012 release of Jeff Wayne's musical version of War of the Worlds. Now, the original album was released in 1978, and it's one of the biggest albums selling in the world. Definitely concept albums, it's one of the biggest. And so Jeff Wayne decided in 2012 to remix it, change it, make it a little bit more modern, and making synthesizers playing a more prominent role, while the original 1978 album had more guitars and everything like that. And due to many people loving the 1978 album, a lot of the fans asked, could it be re-recorded or done again, make it a bit more modern? And so he decided to make this 2012 version. The album replaces several guests from the original album. Liam Neeson replaced Richard Burton, who sadly passed away in 1984, as a journalist, the narrator. Gary Barlow, the guy from Take That, lead singer of Take That and chief songwriter from Take That, replaced Justin Hayward, who was the Moody Blues singer, who's still alive, as the thoughts of the journalist, who's the main person who sings Forever Autumn, that lovely song, and also parts of Eve of the War, you know, Million Chance Comes from the Planet Mars, a Million to One. Ricky Wilson, who's the lead singer of the Kaiser Chiefs, replaced David Essex as the artilleryman. Alex Clare replaced Chris Thompson, who was on the Manfred Mann Earth Band, as the voice of humanity. Basically, he sings Thunderchild, again, The album's brilliant. Thunderchild's the boat that tries to destroy the Martian, but fail. Well, this does destroy one, then it gets completely destroyed by the other three on the English Channel. Maverick Sabre, who's Irish, replaced Phil Lynott, who was the lead singer of Thin Lizzy, who sadly passed away in 1983, 84, 85, something like that, as the Parson Nathaniel. And Joss Stone replaced Julia Covington as Beth. Beth is the original fiancée name, not Carrie. Now, the album I thought was decent, but again, the added synthesizers kind of ruined some of the tracks, especially Eve the War. And this actually happened also on the stage version of this in 2012 for a couple of years. But a lot of the fans, like myself, did not like the synthesizers, so actually Jeff Wayne toned them down in the stage version. So the more recent stage versions, you won't see the synthesizers so much, and back to the good old guitars as it was in the original album. The album received mixed response. Praise was directed to its new compositions and dialogue, and the singers' performances, mostly from Barlow and Clare. Neeson's performance as the journalist was well received. However, some of the fans were not impressed. Criticism was aimed over the overuse of the synthesizers, and Ricky Wilson's performance as artilleryman, I thought he wasn't that bad. Anyway, it was released in the 26th of November 2012 and recorded on June 2011 to October 2012. Again, I put this down below the original recording because of the overuse of synthesizers, which kind of ruined some of the songs, but it's still a very good album, and it's still worth listening to if you haven't heard the newer version of this album. Anyway, let's go over to number 6 when things are starting to get better. So it's number 6 and things are slowly starting to get a little bit better. So we're looking at here the big film release of War of the Worlds, done 20 years ago now. 20 years ago, wow. Is the War of the Worlds 2005 film done by Steven Spielberg, starring Tom Cruise, the all-action hero. Now, this film is done in modern times. It's set in America, of course, not in the UK. UK is actually mentioned briefly for about 30 seconds, which is nice to see, I suppose. It's set in Brooklyn, New York, and it stars Tom Cruise as Ray Farrer, a divorced longshoreman as a crane operator. He's estranged from his children, 10-year-old Rachel and his teenage son Robbie. Basically, the Martians come and attack, and he tries to escape with his 2 children, and they try to go back and find his divorced wife so he can put his children to safety, basically. There's a nice touch right at the end of the film, which I'll mention, a nice cameo there, which I will mention later. Anyway, the film it was a decent film, actually. I did actually enjoy this film. I think they got a lot of the storyline right. There wasn't a ferry crossing as in the War of the Worlds musical album, but not ferry crossing. Yeah, it was a ferry crossing, sorry, from the English Channel to France. This was done in like a small boat, and so they were crossing from one part of America to another part of America. I don't know the destination, sorry. And you saw the Martians attack, or the aliens attack, and the Martians have done really well in this. I think you can see where the money was spent. The money did cost $132 million to make, and it did make a lot of money, actually. It made over $600 million, so it was a success. I actually thought it was pretty decent. It wasn't too bad. I think Tom Cruise did pretty well. His kids were okay. His daughter got a little bit annoying. Tim Robbins features in this. He kind of plays the I'm trying to relate this to the book and the Jeff Wayne's album, to the parson, the vicar, as we call it over here. But he wasn't a parson or vicar in the film. But Tim Robbins was pretty good. The film was narrated by Morgan Freeman, which is amazing. Morgan Freeman's got such a great voice. He is kind of like the narrator. Again, I personally thought the film was decent. There's some very good special effects. Again, you can see where their money was going. Tom Cruise was okay. He was not too bad in the film. I think he acted pretty well in this. I'm glad to see that the film did actually very well. It did earn a couple of Academy Award nominations. It was the fourth most successful film of 2005. I'm just looking at the critics' views. It holds on Rotten Tomatoes. We're looking at Rotten Tomatoes a lot because that gives us a good idea what other people think. 76%. Most people did enjoy it. It also got Metacritic 73 out of 100, which was good. And the audience poll gave it a B+. That's not too bad. As a War of the Worlds fan, I think you will enjoy it. It's quite good, linked to the book, if that makes any sense, but done in a modern way. Of course, it's set in America. It's not set in England. And the cameo right at the end, they finally, spoilers, they finally reached their destination and they're met by Tom Cruise's divorced wife and also the kids' grandparents who are the main characters, actors and actresses from the 1953 original War of the Worlds film, which we'll mention later. But anyway, the Spielberg War of the Worlds 2005 film is definitely worth watching. It's a decent film, but as you can see, it's only down at number 6 of my list. So there are 5 other things that are better than this though. So let's go to number 5. Now, another way of watching, or in this case listening to War of the Worlds, is the book versions, the actual spoken word versions. Now there are many out there. I will mention there is a more recent musical, Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds musical storybook, spoken word book, that's the word, done by Michael Sheen, great actor, Welsh actor, which uses him as a narrator going through the story, but using Jeff Wayne's music as background, which is amazing. I haven't actually listened to it, but if I did, it'll probably feature around this position, I think. But I will mention the one that I have got is the 1967 BBC 4 version of War of the Worlds, which is it's very enjoyable. Basically, it's the whole storyline of the War of the Worlds, the Martian invasion, and Martians are actually named in this, and the actual effects you can hear via the audio is really good. It's set in the late 60s, so this is how the Earth would react to an alien invasion in 1967-68. I had to put my hand up. I originally thought that it was set in Victorian times until the narrator mentioned helicopters, and I thought, wait a minute, there's no helicopters in Victorian Edwardian times, so it must be set in more recent time. And then as the storyline then went on, you can see that it was set in more recent times. It's definitely worth listening to. There are countless other versions of War of the Worlds in the spoken word out there. I will recommend the Jeff Wayne musical version, spoken word version, done by Michael Sheen as the narrator, and there's a couple of other guests in that as well. But I wanted to mention this 1967 version because it's the only one that I've actually listened to so far, and I thought it's well produced, good usage of stock sound. The Martian noise can get a little bit annoying. It's just like a high scream in some cases, but I thought it was quite good. And if you ever manage to find the BBC version, this is when BBC actually do a version right, not like the TV show. This is much better than the TV show, and this is a spoken word book. So if you ever get a chance and get the BBC version of the War of the Worlds, then definitely do, because it's a delight. But anyway, we're going up to number 4. So what's number 4? Well, if you remember at the beginning of this episode, I've told you we're looking at multimedia, so all cases of War of the Worlds, which I've experienced during my lifetime. Now, one experience was something called Jeff Wayne's The War of the Worlds, the immersive experience. Basically, this is an actual event you actually walk to in person, so you don't look at it on the computer or anything like that, or you don't listen to it on the record player or MP3 or whatever you do. You actually walk there and you it's an, as it says, an immersive experience. You see things, you hear things, you smell things, and it's actually in London currently, still there. It's been around for many years. I've actually been twice now, because it has changed so much. Basically, the intro is see it, hear it, live it. Experience a real Martian invasion in London at Jeff Wayne's The War of the Worlds immersive experience. Explore 24 breathtaking scenes and see 300-foot Martian fighter machines brought to life. All set to Jeff Wayne's score, with live actors, 3D immersive sound, holographic projections, virtual reality, and realistic physical sensations. You will not just watch, you'll be right inside the action. Well, a few years ago, I actually did a 2-part video about this. So if you want to see my actual first-hand experiences when I first went there, please watch the videos. I'll put them on the screen right now. They were done about 6 years ago. Things have slightly changed since then. I went again December last year to go and see this as part of the birthday do, and it was very enjoyable. Basically, you and about 7-8 other people walk into London as it was in the late 19th century. You see many things around, you smell many things around, and you get guided through the book basically as you are really there, as you are really the narrator. And you have actors coming in and out of the scenes, helping you out, telling you what's going on. Of course, the Martians attack. If you don't like sudden darkness, you might need to avoid it, because you go into complete darkness and then you can hear the Martians going around the buildings. You see destruction. You then put VR goggles on to see the Martians attack Westminster. You see the Parliament blow up and everything like that. You're on a boat with your VR goggles on. I do get motion sickness, so I have to be really careful when I put VR goggles on, but I was all right. And then you get through all that. You then find yourself getting caught. As you don't get caught in a book, but you get caught in this. And then you then escape. You see the parson, Nathaniel. You then go through his experiences as well. It is so good, and it makes it even better is that all the time you keep thinking about the War of the Worlds album. I must stress how great Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds album. It is amazing, but more about that soon. But yeah, what can I say? This is a very great experience. If you are a War of the Worlds fan, I would definitely recommend you going to this when it's still around. It's been around for quite a few years now. It's basically, the location is 56 Leadenhall Street in London, and it's quite close to quite a few tube stations. Basically, the nearest tube station is Aldgate, if you know London well, and I've walked from Aldgate to this, and it's not too far. You can also get souvenirs if you want to get any souvenirs, mugs. You can get anything you want. There's photos taken. The photo you see in the background there was me right at the end. So in your group, you get these photos. You have to buy for them, of course, and these are souvenirs. Yeah, that's my photo up there. Hopefully we'll post. You'll see some screenshots of some other photos as well, and also some screenshots of camera shots of pictures I'd done when I was there during 2019. I didn't take as many in 2024. I think my difference between the first visit and the second visit was the VR improved, and they added some more sections. When I went in 2019, the VR wasn't brilliant. In 2024, it's much better. They actually cut a whole scene out because I think it just didn't work. And they put a new scene in, which was basically you running into kind of like a bunker while they were attacking above you, which worked really well. Praise also to all the live actors in this. You can see they're really enjoying this. They're really friendly. They try to get the whole group into the experience. They tell you what's going on. And also during the middle of the actual experience, the experience goes on for about 2 hours with a break where you are put into, when you go into a bar and order some drinks, and then the second part starts. But it also, which is great if you enjoy these kind of things, you go on a giant slide. Yeah, it's hard to describe how it's the kind, because you're escaping from the Martians. You go on this giant slide from the top to the bottom. It basically saves you going down some stairs. which is great little thing to do. Now it is dimly lit, and there is some, talking about stairs, there are some stairs and some uneven surfaces there, so you have to be really careful when you're walking around. Yeah, if you're afraid of darkness, you might not like this so much. And I did get some motion sickness towards the end of basically, if you know the storyline, there's, or the album, there's a thing called Brand New World, and in the Brand New World you basically sit and you look above and everything is moving above you. I did not like that with my motion sickness, so because I've seen it already, I just sat down and just listened to it instead. The guy to my left was wondering what was going on. I said, oh, I get motion sickness when I'm looking at that, and he said, yeah, perfectly understand. Hence why, because it seems a bit odd that everyone was looking up while I wasn't looking up at all. I looked up occasionally, but every time I looked up, because all the screens are moving and stuff like that, it didn't make me feel very well. So I decided to call that a miss. There's a lot of parts of the show you have to duck under things and into holes and stuff like that, so you have to be quite fit to do this. I struggled a little bit, but I managed to do it. I'm over 6'3" tall as well, which is not very useful for this, but it's definitely worth going to. I would definitely go there if you are a science fiction fan, and definitely a War of the Worlds fans, and even more so if you're a Jeff Wayne War of the Worlds fans. And I would go there before it ends. There's always talk that it might end soon, but it's still there, and it's definitely worth going if you got the chance. Yeah, so that is number 4. So we're going up to number 3 now. So it's the top 3. So what comes at number 3? Well, I will mention this briefly because we have talked about this a lot already. Back in number 8, this is the Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. This is the original stage version that came out in 2006 up to around 2011. It kind of stopped when the New Generation album was made in 2012, but obviously this is the version where they use the original album. Well, the orchestra plays the original album, if that makes any sense. So not so much synthesized, a lot more guitars. There's no extra songs in this version, and you've got Justin Hayward as the narrator. He actually is in the stage version. You get all these, both those versions, by the way, on Blu-ray DVD. So you get the original version and the New Generation version. The narrator in this case is Richard Burton, the original narrator. Now, of course, he died in 1984. So what they use is they use kind of like a globe on stage, top left hand of the stage, and they put a sort of like a hologram type face on it, which is Richard Burton's face, and then he actually lip syncs, if that makes sense, the original recording. So what they did, they actually got an actor to do the actual lip movements, if that's making sense, put him onto the globe, and then put Richard Burton's face on there, so it looks like it's Richard Burton actually saying it. Yeah, it was very good. I really enjoyed this. This is the first stage version I've saw. The animations in the back, very good. Of course, in both versions, you've got the you've got the massive Martian machine landing and firing its lasers at the crowd. Don't worry, it's just light. And you've got the 48-piece string orchestra and a 10-piece sort of band, the Black Smoke Band as they're called. They're of course they're in both versions, and again it's amazing to see, like for instance Eve of the War, you get the orchestra doing the first bit, then you get the band doing the second bit, and then they merge. It's really enjoyable. It's, you now see of course the newer version of this, but in this version from 2006 to about 2011, as I mentioned before, you have they're doing a live version of the original album, and I definitely enjoyed it. Anyway, let's go to number 2. So coming at number 2, and I'm so glad we can mention it now, it's the 1953 version of War of the Worlds, produced by George Powell, starring Gene Barry and Nan Robinson. Now this is set in America again, but it's such a great film. The special effects for 1953 are amazing, and this film version is still talked about now. And I remember seeing this for the first time. I thought, how can this be made in 1953? Because it looks so good. The setting has changed from Victorian era England to 1953 Southern California. Earth is suddenly invaded by Martians, and American scientist Dr. Clayton Forrester searches for any weakness to stop them. The War of Worlds won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, I can definitely see why, and went on to influence other science fiction films. In 2011, it was selected for preservation in the National Film Industry by the United States Library of Congress, who deemed it cultural, historically significant. This film did so well as well. The critics loved it, and even on the good old famous Rotten Tomatoes, it's been given a 90% based rating by 39 critics with an average rating of 7.2. To summarise, they say, though it's dated in spots, The War of the Worlds retains an Irving power, updating H.G. Wells' classic sci-fi tale to the Cold War era, featuring some of the best special effects of the 1950s films. There are so many positives about this film. The script's really good. The actors, the leading actors, Gene Barry and Anne Robinson, are very good as well. The destruction of the Southern California has been well done. It's amazing how this film was made, and I am a massive fan of this film. And if you haven't seen it, then please go and see it. If you're a science fiction fan especially, you will love this. Gene Barry and Anne Robinson, as I mentioned, have also featured in cameo roles. They were the grandparents of Tom Cruise's children in the 2005 film. You see them right at the end. They're at the doorway smiling and being happy because, of course, they see Tom Cruise and his daughter surviving the battle. But yeah, it was released in April 3rd in London, April 13th in New York. It made a little bit of money, but since then it's become a cultural hit. It is a great film. It's quite reliable as well. For instance, right at the beginning, you'll see some strangers approaching the cylinder thinking nothing's happening, and then they get killed by the heat ray. You'll see all that going on. These special effects, as I said, mentioned before, are really good. The sound effects are amazing as well, for 1953 especially, and it's definitely one of my all-time favourite films. That's why it's so highly up, but it's not number one. I think you should guess what number one is, though. So, thank you first for staying with me. It's been quite a long episode. So we're looking at what my number one is. And it's been mentioned many times already in its various disguises, but my number one War of the Worlds experience at the moment is Jeff Wayne's musical version of War of the Worlds, the original release done in 1978. Well, what can we say about this album? This album, double album, is amazing from the start, from the Richard Burton intro right to the end of the NASA epilogue. It's got such amazing songs. It's so good. Eve of the War is one of my all-time favorite tracks. It goes on for about 7-8 minutes, and it's, even if you're not a sci-fi fan, I think you would love this album. It's very true, and it's very loyal to the book. It's got such a great cast as well. I'll read what Wikipedia says. It was released on 9th of June 1978 by CBS Records. It's an album musical adapted from the science fiction novel War of the Worlds in a rock opera style, with rock band, orchestra, narrator, and a narrator carrying on the story, and lyrics that express the feelings of the various characters. The album features guest artists David Essex, Justin Hayward, Phil Lynott, Chris Thompson and Julia Covington, with actor Richard Burton as the narrator. The album became a commercial success in the UK, debuting at number 5 on the UK Albums chart. It won 2 Ivor Novello Awards for Best Instrumental or Popular Orchestra Work. The album has enjoyed popularity since its release and attracted critical acclaim. It has sold over 2.7 million albums in the UK alone, and an estimated 15 million copies worldwide. In 2018, it was the UK's 32nd best-selling album of all time. It's probably gone down a few more now because it's 2025. The adaptation has spawned multiple versions, including video games, DVDs, and live stage shows. In 2012, Wayne released, of course, the New Generation, which was a more updated version of this. Now, this album was recorded between the 18th of May 1976 to the 30th of June 1977 and released in June 1978. And it goes on for about 94 minutes, so that's an hour and a half. Again, it's a great album. And I just wish they now do a film version of this, because I would really enjoy it. The highlight for me is Eve of the War. Dead London is very sound depressing, but it is a very good song as well. I think like David Essex is the artilleryman, and he does his bit about Brave New World, which is great. Phil Lynott is the parson, the guy who goes insane, talking about gloom and doom. Chris Thompson is the voice of the nation. He's the one that sings about Thunderchild, the boat, and he does it really well. Julia Covington is the parson's wife, Bess, and her song with Phil Lynott is a highlight as well. But I think my main highlight, other than Eve of the War, is Forever Autumn, the song that's featured on side one of the album, the original album, done by Justin Hayward, which was actually made into a single as well in 1978. I think it got into the top 5, if I remember correctly, in the UK. And Justin Hayward of the Moody Blues, of course, sings it really well. And he actually then features into more recent stage shows as well. And yeah, it is an amazing album. And if you haven't listened to it as well as yet, then please do. Now, that is the end of the countdown. That's the 12 that I've seen, but we will now make some honourable or dishonourable mentions of other things that I haven't seen, but it's worth mentioning about them as well.